Man here, and today's the 1st of February, the start of the deer season. So for all you hunters that have been waiting for to go out hunting, now's the time. And this hopefully also helps a lot of newcomers to deer hunting as well. With deer season, what we're mainly talking about is fallow deer. These are some examples of bucks that I've shot beforehand. Now, the most important part about hunting deer, getting into deer and hunting deer, is actually getting onto a property with deer. So it doesn't matter what rifles you have, it doesn't matter how good a shot you are. If you can't get onto a property that's got deer on it, you're not going to shoot deer. It's as simple as that. Fallow deer basically live where they were born. They don't migrate very quickly. They more or less stay in the area, the locality where they're born. So they only move as the numbers push them through into different areas. So what you need to do is you need to find a locality, get onto a few maps, maps of areas where it's known that you've heard that there's deer, that it's known areas that there are deer around, and you can actually go and talk to the locals, talk to whoever you need to, and find out whereabouts, what locality the deer are, and then go asking door to door, try and get onto a deer property. That's the best, easiest way to do it. That's what I've had to do. So, everyone goes through that stage. Areas that you can look for deer are around the New England, Murrurundi, in the Hunter Valley, above the Hunter Valley in the Lithgow Ranges, around Goulburn, basically anywhere where there's rolling hills and open wooded areas. That's where fallow like to live. In actual fact, I work at Camden, and going through Cobbitty the other day, there was a dead deer on the side of the road, and there's deer all the way through that area, all out of Sydney at the south, around Camden, around Silverdale, there's deer, Warrombi, there's deer all around the outskirts of Sydney. Now, once you get onto a deer property, the best thing to do is talk to the property owner. The property owner is there all the time. He sees the movement of all the animals around the place, and he knows whereabouts the deer are roughly located and how many there are. So he will tell you, he'll point you in the right direction, and also if he's got crops, he'll tell you whereabouts the deer are, because the crops, they're a magnet to the deer, and the deer do a lot of damage to crops, winter crops and summer crops, and they just love eating anything that's tasty. So once you get onto a deer property, you've looked around, you've scouted around, you've spoken to the property owner, he's pointed you in the right direction, you go looking for your deer. Now, when you start looking for your deer, it's no good stumbling around just looking for them. You just won't find them. What you've got to do is you've got to get yourself up onto a nice vantage point where you've got a really nice view of a couple of gullies or valleys, and get yourself a good set of binoculars, and then you can glass the area. Don't get the small mini pairs, the lightweight ones, because they just don't have the field of view. You want to have a good field of view when you're looking at ranges, and you want to have good depth, and you won't get that with the smaller binoculars. So having a good pair of binoculars is invaluable for deer hunting. Especially also if you do find a deer, you can then use the binoculars to pick out whether or not there's an animal worth hunting if you're going for a trophy, or even what sort of condition the animals are in. Now, you've gone there, found the deer, and the next step is stalking the deer. Now, deer are very, very flighty. They've got very good eyesight, and they've also got very good sense of smell, right? And put together, they become very skittish. So when you start your stalk, the one major thing that you have to consider is the wind. The deer will smell you from miles away. They're just unbelievable. Now, you might say, I can read the wind, it's not a problem. But first thing in the morning, when you think it's absolutely still, there's still drafts coming from the thermals of air moving up the hills. So it's invariably necessary to get yourself a puffer or a wind, some way of determining the wind. Now with this, nice and simple, it's just an old plastic bottle and I filled it with dust, and you just press it and it shows exactly where the wind's going. So that is really a plus, a very necessary tool for deer hunting. The other thing that you have to consider when you start your stalk is wildlife. If there's a mob of kangaroos around or something like that, they come into the equation. If you spook the kangaroos will run. If the kangaroos will run, they will attract the attention of the deer. The deer will look at the kangaroos and become twice as much skittish. And they might even just run off just for the hell of it. It's happened so many times. Kangaroos run across the deer and the deer disappear. Stock is the same, whether it's sheep or cattle. If the deer see any movement which is unnatural for them of animals running, they then think alarm. The alarm bells come on and they run off as well. So you have to be wary of not just the deer, but also any animals that are around when you commence your stalk. It becomes very frustrating. So you're looking for the deer, you found them, start stalking. You might want to use a rangefinder, right? When you look at a deer, at a fallow deer, and it's 300 yards plus away, the thing is tiny. It's not worth taking a shot. I take most of my shots under 200 yards. And the closer you are to the deer, the more chance that you're going to hit the sweet spot for the deer and he's going to go down in one shot. Invariably, deer are very hard to kill. They've been hit by bloody 223s and they've gone straight down. But when you're hunting bucks around the rut, around this time of year going into the rut, the animals, like these boys were about, I would estimate about 120 kilos each, and it's all muscle. And they're ready for fighting, they're super fit, they're super strong, and if you don't hit them right, they will run off. Yes, you will kill them, that's true, but that's not the way we like to operate as hunters. We like to be able to grass the animal, put it down onto the grass, and be able to give it a definite blow there and then. We don't want the animal running off suffering. So going underneath a certain distance is better than long range shooting. These people that talk about shooting deer at 400 yards and 500 yards, it's not reality. It's just not reality. But if you do take a rangefinder, make sure you take a spare battery as well with it, because without the battery, the rangefinder is useless. Now, when the rut starts in March, April, the male deer start calling, they start croaking, and their sound carries for kilometres, carries a long way. And they start rounding up all their herons and everything. And one way you can attract the male deer is by using old cast antlers that you can pick up, find on the ground around deer properties. And what you do is you rattle them, and that will actually attract male deer as well, thinking that their competitors are there. Now, we've got the deer. you found the deer and you're going to shoot the deer, and we'll talk about rifle calibers for fallow deer. Now, with rifle calibers for fallow deer, anything from 243 up is really good. But I do find that because the deer are 120 kilo animals, the bucks, and fairly solid, once you get past a certain point, they're not really big game. So if you use too much gun, you're going to end up punching through the animal, and the energy of the bullet is going to travel out through the animal, and the animal's going to run off. Unless you hit a vital sweet spot, the animal's going to run off. So good short stumpy cartridges like the 260, the 6.5 by 55, the 308, the 708, 7 by 57, which I have a soft spot for, are very good deer calibers because they're not hyper fast, and they really deliver the energy into the animal. Once you get to 270, that's of the taller cartridges, the 270 or 2506 would be about the limit, and you wouldn't use heavy bullets, you'd use 130 grainers. That way the energy is retained in the animal, and it gets the job done. I have tried 300 Winchester Magnum, 7mm Remington Magnum on the deer, but if you don't hit them 110% correctly, you punch holes through them. And one big buck that I hit with a 300 Winchester Magnum, I couldn't find him. He just walked off. I couldn't find him, couldn't stop him. So it's not how much gun you have, it's hitting the sweet spot. And if you can imagine the middle of their chest, right? So their aiming point, the aiming point is into the center of the chest. And if you look sideways, you're going to be aiming just below the shoulder into their chest cavity. And if they're angling away from you, again, you're going to be aiming towards the middle of their chest from that angle, so that you drive towards the boiler room. You want to hit the lungs, you want to hit the heart if possible. The heart is very small, but you want to hit the lungs so that the animal will bleed to death very quickly. And basically he might run 20 yards and he'll go down, he'll be dead. And that's a really good shot, the lung shot, which is really good. So any of those calibers will do the job very well. So it's up to you. I'm not going to go into which caliber is better than whatever, but I do recommend from in the 243 I'd go for the 105 grainers, or the heaviest bullet you can go, and I wouldn't go any heavier than 140 grainers. In my 7x57 I use 139 grainers, and it does a really good job. And the 708 the same, the 139 grainers for deer. So that's my recommendation. It's up to you. Now you've shot the animal's on the ground, starts the work, because first of all you've shot it for a reason. You know, unless you're culling the deer, which is unusual, although it does happen. A lot of property owners hate the deer with a passion, others they don't mind them. So you're going to try and harvest the deer. So first of all you'll need some gloves if you want to stay clean, otherwise you're going to get messy with deer guts and all that. If you're going for the trophy, it's a matter of cutting the head off and carrying the head back. But I also like to take the meat, and I take the trophy, the head, and I'll also take the back straps and as much rump as I can put in my backpack, and then I just carry the head by hand, sort of like lugging it along and swapping hands every few minutes as it gets heavier and heavier. Depends where you are, depends on your level of fitness. You might want to take the whole animal back. It's entirely up to you. You do what you can. It also depends on the time of the year. what happens in Australia is you have a lot of blowflies, so time is of the essence. Depends on the time that you shoot the deer. For deer hunting, I've got a few knives. I like my Nieto knife for pig hunting and goats and all that. And for deer hunting, what I do is I have a Necker Swedish blade. And the reason I have this blade, because it's a really nice curved skinning blade, but it also flicks and it has a gut hook, so I can run along the fur of the deer just inside the skin and cut it open without dulling my blade, because once you start cutting through the deer, you will actually dull your blade on the dirt that's on the animal. So that's what you need, a really good knife and maybe a sharpening stone to keep it clean. If with the meat that I put in my backpack, I use plastic bags, not the garbage bags, but actual proper plastic bags, because the garbage bags that you get are not actual watertight. The blood actually seeps through, and if you want to keep your backpack reasonably clean, you'll want to use a plastic bag. If you're going to carry the animal on the outside, you're going to maybe cut a leg off and you're going to hump it on your shoulder. A really good thing to get is an old pillowcase. This is an old pillowcase, and what you can do is you take the leg off at the joint and you'll end up with the fur. Leave the fur on, because the fur keeps the meat clean, and then all you do is you just put the pillowcase over the joint and stuff it in and then wrap it around, and then that way it allows the meat to cool, because the faster that you can get the meat to cool, the less it'll deteriorate, and also this will keep the flies off. It won't stop the blood from dripping all over your back and everything, but it'll keep the flies off, and that's what you want. You don't want the flies on, because if you're carrying the leg on your back and the flies are on it, by the time you get home and everything, it'll be fly blown, and that's something you don't want. So anyway, hopefully this helps you a little bit in hunting deer. Like I said, you got to get onto a property first, but go through the steps and you should have no trouble. And if you haven't butchered a deer before, don't worry about it. Just try. You get better by making mistakes, and it doesn't matter how many people tell you how to do something until you've actually tried it yourself. You don't know what they're actually talking about. Once you've tried it yourself, you can watch other videos and you can pick up hints and you can see how other people have done it, but the thing is to have a go. So that's my advice here. Anyway, happy hunting. Hope the deer season's good for you. I hope it's reasonable for me, and thanks for watching. Cheers.